to talk about proportions, but we're going to now incorporate percents with our proportions. In the last lesson, you learned how to convert between decimals, fractions, and percents. And so now we're going to take that knowledge and put it into proportions. So your goal for today is that I can solve problems using the percent proportion. You may have heard of the percent proportion before by another name. Some people call it is over of equals percent over 100. So let's go ahead and get started with our definition. If you remember, a proportion compares two equivalent ratios, while a percent proportion compares part of a quantity to the whole quantity using the percent. A really easy way to think about it is a test grade. If you got 63 questions out of 84 questions correct, a percent proportion is going to help you figure out what your percentage is. So let's go ahead and get started with some examples. So this is your formula right up here. And the formula is over of equals percent over 100. So our first problem, you're going to watch me annotate it with specific markings. I encourage you to do that because it helps you set the proportion up. Once we get the proportion set up, it's solved like any other proportion that we've done so far. Okay, so 10 is 25% of what number? So you saw how I underlined the is, circled the percent, and put a squiggly line under the of. So let's go ahead and set up the proportion. So we have two fraction bars, set them equal to each other. The bottom of this proportion right here is always going to be a freebie, and it's going to be 100. Then we have 25% at the top. Now, this says here 10 is. Our is at the top of the first proportion, so we put it here. And it says of what number? We don't know, so that's going to be our x. Now, once we have this set up, it's solved like any other proportion. So 25 times x is 25x. 100 times 10 is going to be 1,000. Go ahead and set them equal to each other, just like you would with any other proportion. You're going to box your variable, divide by the coefficient that is attached to it, which is 25. This side will cancel, and you're left with x equals, and if you do 1,000 divided by 25, you're going to get 40. Now, what does this mean? Well, if the 40 is the missing value for x, think about it like a test grade. 10 questions right out of 40 questions, and you'll have a 25% on your test. Not too good of a test grade, but it helps you understand what's going on. So let's look at our second one. I'm going to annotate it the same way. 7 is 70% of what number? So put your two fraction bars. Set them equal to each other. Your freebie, like your free space, like on a bingo card, is always going to be the 100. We have the percent, which always goes on top of the 100. This says 7 is, and if we go back up to our formula, the is always on top. So 7. And this says of what number? Our of is on the bottom, and we don't know. So that's our x. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply. So 70 times x is 70x. 100 times 7 is 700. Let's set them equal to each other. 700 equals 70x. Box your variable. Divide by the coefficient that's attached to it, which is 70. Do it to both sides to be fair. These guys cancel. You're left with x equals, and when you divide 700 over 70, your answer is going to be 10. Again, what does that mean in context of the problem? Well, if x equals 10, this guy right here will be 10. Think about it like a test. If you got 7 questions right out of 10, your percentage would be 70. All right, let's look at another problem down here. So we have 20 is 40% of what number? Set them up, set your fraction bars up, set them equal to each other. Your freebie is always 100. You have your percent over 100. If it says 20 is, your is on top. Of what number? Well, we really don't know. So that's going to be your x. Cross multiply. 40 times x is 40x. 100 times 20 is going to be 2,000. Set them equal to each other. As always, box your variable. Divide by the coefficient that's attached to it, which is 40. And then you'll have your x equals. And I got to grab my calculator here, so hold on one second. All right, so 2,000 divided by 40, and that would give us 50. So again, that means if you had a question, if you had a test with 50 questions on it, you got 20 correct, your percentage would be 40%. Okay, we're going to use the same exact formula, but this time instead of missing the of, we're going to be missing the is. Okay, you're going to see that they're worded just a little bit differently, and you're going to also see that I'm going to annotate them the exact same way as I read them. So let's get started with the first one. What number is 80% of 500? Okay, set up your fraction bars, set them equal to each other. Your freebie 100 is always there. No matter which value you're looking for, your freebie is always 100. Your percent is 80%. This says what number is, so we're missing the is. And this says of 500, our of is on the bottom, so our 500 will be here. Now you're going to go ahead and cross multiply. So we have 100 times x is 100x, and then you have 500 times 80, which is going to be 40,000. Set them equal to each other. 40,000 equals 100x. Box your variable. Divide by the coefficient that's attached to it. So these guys are going to cancel. You're left with x equals, when you take 40,000 and divide it by 100, you're going to get 400. Now, what does this tell you? Again, think about it in terms of a test. If you had 500 problems on the test, you got 400 right, that's going to be an 80%. Okay, let's take a look at the next problem. So I'm going to annotate it the same way. 30% of 150 is what number? Here we go. Set up your fraction bars. Set them equal to each other. Your freebie is 100. Do you have a percent? Yes, you do. It's 30%. Of 150, that's going to be your bottom. Is what number? Well, that's our top. We don't know. All right, let's cross multiply. So we have 150 times 30, and that's going to give us 4,500. Then you have 100 times x, that's going to give you 100x. Set them equal to each other. 100x equals 4,500. Box your variable. Divide by the coefficient that's attached to it and do the same thing to the other side. These guys will cancel. You're left with x equals, and then 4,500 divided by 100 is going to give you 45. Again, think about it in terms of a test. If 45 questions are what you got right, out of a test of 150 questions, you have a 30% average. Not so good. All right, now let's look at this last one here. What is 15% of 60? Set up your fraction bars, set them equal to each other. Your freebie is 100. Your percent goes on top of the 100. What is? We don't know, so that's our x. Of 60, that's the bottom of the first proportion. Cross multiply. 60 times 15 is going to give you 900. 100 times x is going to give you 100x. Set them equal to each other. 100x equals 900. Box your variable. Divide by the coefficient that's attached to it. These guys cancel, and your x is going to equal 900 divided by 100 is 9. So that means if you got 9 questions right out of a 60 question test, you have a 15%. All right, last 3 examples. This time, you're going to be missing the percent, and that's what you're going to determine. But you're going to notice 2 things. It's the same formula, and I'm going to annotate the word problems the same exact way. So here we go. What percent of 136 is 34? Set up your fraction bars, set them equal to each other. 100 is your freebie on the bottom. What percent? We don't know, so that's your x. Of 136, that's your bottom. Is 34, that's your top. All right, let's cross multiply. 136 times x is 136x. 100 times 34 is going to be 3,400. Set them equal to each other. So we have 3,400 equals 136x. All right, box your variable. Divide by 136 because that's what's attached to it. Cross these out, and your x is going to equal 3,400 divided by 136 is going to be 25. So again, think about it in terms of a test. 136 questions on the test, you get 34 right, your average is a 25%. Okay, here we go again. What percent of 24 is 18? Set up your fraction bars, set them equal to each other. 100 is your freebie on the bottom. What percent? We don't know, that's your x. Of 24, the top is 18. Cross multiply. 24 times x is 24x. 100 times 18 is 1,800. Set them equal to each other. 1,800 equals 24x. Box your variable. Divide by the coefficient attached to it, which is 24. These guys cancel out, and you're left with x equals. When you do 1,800 divided by 24, your answer is going to be 75. So what does that mean in terms of the problem? Well, 24 questions on a test, you get 18 right, you have a 75%. Much better. Okay, last problem. 27 is what percent of 30? All right, you do this one on your own, and I will solve it as well. All right, you should have gotten x equals 90. Think about it again in terms of a test. You get 27 questions right out of 30 questions, you have a 90%. All right, that is the end of this lesson. Remember, you can go back, you can rewind, fast forward, and pause as you need to, and you can always, always, always ask me questions in class.